All right. Good afternoon. Welcome back. We are moving on. Chapter 4. I'm going to give you a quick summary of what we're basically going to do that's going to take us almost to the end of the semester. Chapters 4, 5, and 6 will be the brunt of it. We're going to do a little bit in Chapter 7 right before we're done. So just a little recap here. What we focused on starting out was a lot of equation solving, right? Solve quadratic equations, solve radical equations, and then a lot of stuff with graphs, plotting points in a graph, domain and range, blah, blah, blah. And then we got into functions, and we talked about domain and range of functions, the graphs of functions, transformations on functions, inverse functions, and those were like all functions. We were looking at lines and quadratics and cubics and all that. Now we're going to start focusing on those specific types of functions. And here's the types that we're going to talk about. Chapter 4 is all on linear functions, which you are definitely familiar. Y equals mx plus b, slope and y-intercept. But we're going to do a lot with them. Applications and modeling and data and graphing. And I'm going to give you, some project type problems to try to figure out with the linear functions. Then, when we're done with linear functions, we are going to look at polynomial and power functions, and we've already done some of this. We've looked at quadratics quite a bit. We've solved quadratic equations, and we used the quadratic x squared a lot for our transformations, right? Up, down, left, right, make it wider, make it skinnier, whatever. But we're also going to look at some cubic equations, some fourth degree equations, and other polynomials. And also in Chapter 5, we're going to look at rational functions. We haven't done a lot with that yet. We solved some rational equations back in Chapter 2, but we haven't done a lot with the graphs or the behavior of rational functions yet. And then a radical function, one that actually has a square root sign. We'll look at something like that. Chapter 6 is all about exponential functions, exponential growth. And the inverse of an exponential function is a logarithmic function. So that'll be Chapter 6. And that'll take us, like I said, almost to the end of the semester. So, today what we're going to do is we're going to focus on linear functions. We are going to do 2 Desmos activities, and then we'll be out of here. Okay? The first one, if you go to course docs and links, all the Chapter 3 stuff, all those, I moved it all to the bottom of the page. So when you go there now, the first thing you should see is Chapter 4. But the Chapter 3 stuff isn't gone. You can still get it. You just got to scroll all the way to the bottom of the page. Okay, Desmos, put the point on the line. That's the one I want us to start on. Like all Desmos activities, you basically just have to follow the instructions. And I've said this before. Please try to approach these activities with this idea of, I might actually learn something today, or I might figure something out today. If you go through the Desmos activity purely to get it done, then you're kind of missing the point. The idea is that it's supposed to give you some background knowledge so that when you do those quizzes and that when you do take the test, you can make the connection between what's going on with what we practice and when I give you an assessment. On step 5, you should be able to be a little more accurate. Notice the last one is make your challenge. Let's do that. Step 9 is where it gets a little dicey. Now you got to do some thinking. Yeah, you're actually typing in the length of the segment, right? You just have to enter one number, correct? Or do we enter coordinates?
You can't enter.
You can't enter coordinates. It only wants you to enter a length. So it's like a distance down, right? How'd we do on people's challenges? Say again. Are you trying somebody's challenge or making your own?
This is my own stuff.
Okay.
But
Did you click submit challenge?
it won't let me.
Is it because your answer is wrong?
It's going through all of them.
But what's the answer? Is your answer negative 5.7? How do you know it's negative 5.7?
Oh, I don't know.
See, I think if it doesn't let you submit your challenge, it means that you entered the wrong answer. Does that make sense? Was anybody able to submit their challenge? Yep.
I had to do it right though. Right?
Yep. So I think if you get that number different, it'll let you submit it, right? Does everybody see what's going on with number 11? Anybody having trouble with number 11? It looks like only 2 of you have got it submitted so far. So those of you that have an incomplete challenge, you haven't put in the correct answer yet. Did you finish yours?
No.
You already went to the second one? Oh, what happened there? It kicked you out?
Yeah.
What? You have an account, don't you? So go to your history and see if you can go back to that. What? I don't know what just happened to yours. Oh, so it did save it?
Starts it over at the beginning, so you
Yeah, it just takes a while. You're in. Okay. Braden, Jordan, and Megan B. So far, you guys have good submitted challenges. There's Isaiah, got his on there as well. Remember, it'll gray out the submit challenge button until you put the correct answer in there. Basically, you're making the answer key. You are making the answer key. Now, once you have yours submitted, does it give you the opportunity to try somebody else's? So like Jordan, yours worked, right? Can you try somebody else's now?
Yeah.
So now you're trying Braden's. Braden, you can try Jordan's, or vice versa. The idea is you can try somebody else's challenge. Is that on step 11? You can just click on somebody else's?
I already got the next one. I can go back though if you want.
Oh, yeah. Just go back and see if you can try somebody else's challenge. Is it not working? So you might have calculated something. So you might have to pull out your calculator because you got a 7.4 and a negative 3.5. That's going to come out to an ugly decimal, right? So you can either use easy numbers, but if you're using ugly decimals, you're going to have to probably pull out your calculator to actually come up with the value that you want. Who's struggling on making their challenge? So, pull out your calculator here. If you think in terms of slope, right? Your slope for rise over run, so B over A. B would be a rise, A would be a run. Figure out what B divided by A is. So it's negative 4.4 divided by 2.6. So it's that ugly decimal, right? So now you need D over C to be that same ugly decimal. Does that make sense? Well, you already have a C value of 3.5. So set up a little equation. You need something divided by 3.5 to equal negative 1.69. Does that make sense? So work it out.
Okay.
So you need what's your C value again? 3.5. So you need 3.5 is your run, right? It's your horizontal. And you need something. We don't know what it is. It's your value of D. And you need that to equal that ugly decimal. Or the other way you can think of it, you need that to equal negative 4.4 over 2.6. Do you agree? This rise over run should be exactly the same as that rise over run because it's all the same line. So how would you solve that for D? It would just be solving a proportion. Cross multiply?
Well,
Yep.
So basically what you just did with her would be,
Yep.
would be B would be my rise, right?
B is your rise, so you have negative 4 over
Over
1.7.
1.7.
And you want that to be equal to something that you don't know yet, D,
My D,
over,
3.7.
so solve for D.
So then I would just cross multiply this way.
Yep, so if you cross multiply, so 1.7D is equal to, that'll be 14.8.
Then divide.
So if you pull out your calculator, I think if you go negative 14.8 divided by 1.7, I think you can go at about negative 8.7. I don't know how touchy they are.
Okay.
Like if you round to like 2 decimal places or something like that.
And this is the overall, what we're supposed to be gathering from this exercise.
So
right?
the idea is, right. The idea is that if you have 2 points on a line and then you have some third point, it's going to be on the same slope.
Right.
So you need to come up with that. You got run, rise, run, and then question mark. You got to come up with that final rise, which in this situation is going to be negative.
Jeremy.
Yep.
Well, I think my computer is dumb. Because it literally goes through the center.
Well, but it's probably being a little touchy. So you got A and B are 2 and negative 2, so your slope is negative 1, right? But your C is 2.4, so what should your D be? Yours should be really, really easy. It's common sense here. If you go 2 and negative 2, then if you go over 2.4, how far down should you go? 2.4. So change that 3.5 to a 4. So you're right, your eyeballs, it was, but it was so darn close that it actually wasn't perfect. It was just, yeah.
You were getting so frustrated.
Okay, now I see we have a lot of good submitted challenges.
No.
Did you guys get yours to work over here? So the whole moral of the story here is, remember back on step 8? No, step 7? No. Step 10. All of you said yes, I think. Well, one of you said no. Almost all of you said yes on step 10. How did you come up with, how did you know for sure? Well, you can use your eyeballs, but if your eyeballs are off by 1/10, it might not go through the line, but it looks like it does, right? So how do you know for sure? So here's our 3 points. Here, I'm going to show you Alex's. Alex actually drew a nice little picture for us. We know it goes through this point, and we know it goes through this point. The question is, does it still go through this point? Well, it looks like it does, but let's find out for sure. We can either count boxes if we want. If we count from here to here, we get a rise and a run. And whatever that rise and run ratio is, it should be the same rise and run ratio as this one. Because if all 3 points are on the same line, we can't have a different slope here and a different slope here. It's got to be the same slope all the way through. And I think that one was. I actually wrote it up on the board here. The first point at the very bottom was 0, -4. The next one was 2, 1/2. And the next one was 6, 9.5. So from the first 2 points, we had a rise of 4.5 over 2. And from the next 2 points, we had a rise of 9 over 4. Well, 4.5 over 2 is 9 over 4. It's the same. So as far as I can see, the slope between these 2 points was the same as the slope between these 2 points. Therefore, it's all one straight line. I believe our answer should have been yes for step 10. So what are they trying to have you do on step 11? They're saying, come up with your own. Here's 3 points. Where does the 4th point go? And it looks like just about all of you have figured that out now. If you've had a chance to try one of your classmates' challenges, go ahead and do that. You can start on the second one if you want, which is called Match My Line. And my directions there say complete it through step 7. If you want to go past step 7, go for it. If you only want to go up to step 7, you can do that. And I'll come around and still see how some of you are doing here on the first one. How you guys doing here? Oh, so you're trying it on the Geogebra now? So what you've got is, notice your point C is like an ugly decimal. Yeah. So what do you got on your challenge? Yours worked, huh? Right? Is yours still not, Hannah? Okay, so look, draw yourself a little picture here. This is a distance of 2, right? A. This is a distance of negative 8. All right, so we're going from this point down to this point. Okay, and then it says we're going over 3. The question is, how far down? Where do I put this point? That's the question. It's going to be somewhere down here, right? So you got to look at what you know. From here to here, what's my rise over my run? What's my slope? Well, it's negative 8. Rise over run, right? Here's the rise. There's the run. So my slope is from here to here. Well, we know that whatever slope we get right here, it's got to match this slope, because 2 chunks of the same line have to have the same slope. So if rise over run is going to have to equal whatever this is, we're calling it D, it's going to have to equal D over, what's my run? 3. So how would you solve that now? Cross multiply, yeah, it's a proportion, so I'd get 2D equals negative 24. So D should be negative 12. And now it should draw a line, and it should go through it perfect. And now it actually works, right? Yep. I think you have some of yours aren't right.
Did I mess with someone?
3, 6, and 8 show that they're all 3 wrong. You want to go back and take a look at it?
Oh, because, my marble supplies. They took me a while. I figured out lots of things. Well, Yeah, I think I got it. Where?
Remember on step 3, each one is supposed to pass through the origin. Take a look at
Well, it's over.
Wait, so it's not realistic?
I guess not. Didn't
Oops.
I that one? I just thought it was.
it should go through the origin and one of the points. So I'm going to show you one here, if it ever loads. This is Connor's. This one looks good. See how each one goes through the origin? And it's hitting each of the blue points? Now I'm going to take that down before you copy his answer.
Jeremy, you didn't get that right. What the heck?
I just got here.
That was fun. Finish that.
Oh, that's real.
Notice everything we're doing here is basically y equals mx plus b. You should know what the m is. You should know what the b is.
Oh wait, we didn't have to go past certain ranges. What? It was 7 that we didn't have to go past.
Yeah, I wanted you to go up through 7, but you can keep going if you want. As you're starting to finish up, if I'll just direct your attention to the schedule. If you look at the schedule, what we were going to do in class today is put the point on the line and match my line up through step 7. Okay? I got one more activity that I'm going to do with you here in a minute. And then I did make an optional marble slides for you guys. I thought I did. Oh, I didn't put it on there. I'll put it on there. It's just if you need more y equals mx plus b practice. You can also practice beyond step 7 of this guy if you want. In about 4 or 5 minutes, I'm going to transition to one other activity.
Here we go again. How do you even know which one belongs to? What?
So you want it to go through 0, 0. Isn't that what they're asking you to do? Oh, wait a second. I got to read the directions. Each line should pass through the point on the y-axis and one of the other 4 points. Okay. So you just got to pick. So yours might be different than your neighbor's. Or no, it won't. There's only one on the y-axis. Yours will be the same as your neighbor's. My bad. Braden, somehow you got in here twice. If you do you have a username login? Because if you that's what we did on one of the first days, I think. The idea there is if you ever get like 80% done and you click out of it, if you go back in it, you don't have to start over. You can just log in, and then you wouldn't. That's why your name is in there twice. You exited and you went back in. Yeah. So you might want to do that. Okay, I'm going to pause you for now. I'll give you time to finish it, but a lot of people are already done and they're just hanging out waiting. So I'll unpause that in a little bit. What I'd like you to do, and this will be short, just go ahead and open up your Geogebra. I want to show you how we can make our computer make whatever line we want. So again, we're interested in M and we're interested in B, right? So what I'd like you to do is your slider button, that's this guy right here, the second one from the right. Go ahead and click on some white space somewhere. And for your very first variable, don't call it A, let's call it M. And you can go from -5 to 5. I'm going to increment it again. 0.1 will be the increment. It doesn't matter what you do the increment. I'll do 0.1. So now we have this M value where I can slide him to wherever I want. Go ahead and make a second slider. And this time I want you to call it B. And again, we can go from -5 to 5. And we can increment it 0.1. You could change those numbers if you want. So now I have a B value. So you guys probably know where I'm going with this. If down in your input bar, if you want to graph a line and then be able to manipulate that line, make it dynamic so you can move it around, all you got to do is do M times X plus B. So type M times X plus B, hit enter, and then over in your algebra window, it'll show your equation. And then just start sliding your sliders wherever you want. You can make it a negative slope, a positive slope. And then B, of course, is your y-intercept, so you can slide it up and slide it down. So you could, for example, now that you have this slider in place, you could put a point like right here and right here. There's two random points. And then you could use your sliders to try to match it up, right? Now, you're probably not going to be able to get super close just because you'd have to adjust your increment from 0.1. You might have to go to 0.01 or 0.001 or something like that if you really wanted to be precise. If you were just going to randomly pick 2 points. But since we did that, go ahead and just, you can ignore your little line for a second. I'm just going to get mine out of the way. So go ahead and just plot 2 random points anywhere on your screen. Mine are A and B. I can move them around. I can move A right there. Just put them at some random goofy decimal. Everybody got 2 points plotted? Doesn't matter if it's over here or over here. If you wanted to find the equation of the line that goes through 2 points, say this point and this point, if you were doing it on paper, how would you have to do that? Find the equation of a line that goes through the following 2 points. There's 2 pieces of information we need, right? We need an M and we need a B. You'd have to find the slope first. So if I was doing this on paper, I would have to say, well, I need to find the slope, so I need to find the rise and the run, right? That's a terrible picture. So what's the height difference? Well, the height would be 7.56 minus 3.44. That's the height difference. That's the difference in my y, right? And then how far is it from here to here? Well, it'd be 6.22 minus 2.5. And I'd have to do the math on that, and I'd have to figure out the slope with my calculator, right? Once I knew what the slope is, I'd have the m. Then I'd have to go through and plug in one of my points, and I'd have to solve for b. And it can be a little tedious, especially if you have decimals. With whole numbers, it's a little easier, right? How would I do it if I didn't want to pick up my pencil at all? If I wanted to use my computer? I could do it with my whole slider, but there's a way better way to do it than that too. What can I do? Just graph a line that goes through those 2 points. So pick my line tool right here. I'm going to do a new line. All I got to do is click on point A, click on point B. Now it spits it out in general form. Notice in my algebra window over here, it spits it out that way. But if I right click on it, I can change it into mx plus b form. And there, I just had my computer do all the work for me. So at any point, if you are given 2 points and you just want to find the equation of the line that goes through those 2 points, you can very quickly plot your 2 points, make a line on your computer, and you can spit out the equation, right? So think all the way back to the Harvard graduation one that we did. Person number 1 was announced, you could say, the person and the time. Person number 1 was announced at 17 seconds. Person number 2 was announced at 24 seconds. Could you find out when person number 58 is going to be announced? If you knew for sure that it was going to be 7 seconds in between. And we found out that that wasn't quite the case. But you see where I'm going with that? You could just plot the first 2 points. You could look for the third point on your line, no problem. Okay, so you can save that if you want. I just wanted to show you how quick and easy that is to do. I'm going to unpause your Desmos. If you're done through step 7, you're free to go. Have a great spring break if you want to stick around for the next 4 minutes and finish. Through step 7 is what I'm going to give you a grade on, so don't quit after step 6. And have a good spring break. See you on Monday, or the following Monday.